What are we talking about? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm for you! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine, no matter how it is that you're doing that this morning, whether you're watching live on Facebook, live on YouTube, or live over on Roku TV. I am Chris, and of course, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Feeling good. Just coming off the national championship. I guess Jim Harbaugh had the last say.
He had the last say. And Mo, is that the last time that we will officially see him on the sidelines for Michigan?
My gut feeling is yes. I think he'll get some pressure from some of the boosters, the administration. They're going to say, like, you can go out on a high horse, because if you don't go out, I think the other shoe will drop. So this is going to be one of those kind of things where there might be a collaboration with the NCAA where they're like, if he leaves and walks away now, whatever sanctions we put upon you will be a lot more lenient than if he tries to stay and defy us like he's done before.
And remember, the issue, or not the entire issue, but a lot of the issue with the NCAA is particularly with Harbaugh.
Right.
It's with his attitude. It's the way he carries himself. It's the way that he has lied or not lied, or been deceptive or not been deceptive throughout this entire process. So it's very fair to say, if you are Michigan, that whatever the NCAA decides, it will be better if Harbaugh is not associated with the program come time to pay the piper.
Correct. 100%. And look, right now, coming off of what he just accomplished, he's probably one of the most sought after, if not the most sought after coach out there. So he's already had success in the NFL. Maybe going back and taking another shot at having the ultimate success is something that he wants anyway.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Black Monday that was the NFL. Obviously, Black Monday got kicked into high gear at 12:01 a.m.
Right.
when the Atlanta Falcons let go of Arthur Smith. Mo, that was something that we did not see coming. We thought that it should have happened a season earlier than it did. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show. Obviously, he knew it was coming mid-game this weekend. And then obviously in his post-game tirade and everything that followed. And then Atlanta decided, no, we're not going to let you see morning as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. You are going to be moved prior to that. But let's touch on some of the other moves that went around the NFL yesterday. The New York Giants fired their special teams coordinator. This was also in the wake of their defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, stepping down. So Dable not going anywhere in New York, but it looks like there is going to be a shakeup in some of the other big coaching positions. On top of that, you have the news that as of today, not as of today. Let me tell you what they actually said. Week 1, 2024, Daniel Jones will be their starter under center.
You did say that, right?
We talked about why that was the right thing for them to say yesterday. Mo, do you think the defensive side of the football is what needs a shakeup with the New York Giants?
I think that's weird, because if you watch the Giants over the last 7 or 8 games of the season, the defense was the best thing about them. It's the reason why they were winning football games. It wasn't for their offense. If you've seen their offense, even when Cutlets was running the show, it was not a prolific offense. They were benefiting off of having a short field because of how good the defense is. So the defensive coordinator stepping down, that might be one of those things where maybe he and Daboll just don't see eye to eye. But in terms of what they were doing, they were playing well. or maybe he's stepping down, Chris, because he thinks he has an opportunity to become a head coach somewhere else. But it definitely isn't because the defense wasn't playing well. Like the best part about the Giants was the defense. If you don't believe me, just watch what they did to Philly's offense. They dismantled Philly's offense. Like, that's a very good defense. So I don't think that was the issue. I think that's one of those kind of things where Dayball, or maybe he and the GM, they just didn't have the same philosophy or had some disagreements internally.
Or maybe, Mo, he saw the report that Daniel Jones was going to be the starting quarterback in and he said, I am not going to put myself through this again.
That's a good answer.
I have no desire to try to hold teams under 14 points every week, because that's not the way we do things in the NFL.
That's a great answer. Right. He's like saying, like, look, I'm a good defensive coordinator, but I don't have like the Ray Lewis Ravens, right? Like, if you score more than 10, we're done. So yeah, I totally get that. So yeah, that would not motivate me to want to come back. I get that.
To the surprise of nobody, the Carolina Panthers continued to clean house on Monday. They fired their general manager, Scott Fidier, possibly. Again, interesting in the sense we were surprised they fired the head coach, so we shouldn't be surprised they fired the GM. Obviously, the owner of the Carolina Panthers thinks that cleaning house is going to resolve the issue. We know what the issue is. They have very little talent on that roster. Mo, it's interesting, though. We talked to Adam. We didn't talk to him. Adam Thielen spoke yesterday, and he reiterated the fact that his move, or his decision, because he was a free agent, his decision to go to Carolina was because he realized he had a couple more years to play football left, and he wanted to put himself in a spot to make it to the Super Bowl. Mo, I don't know what he thought or what was sold to him in that meeting with Carolina.
Man, they must have did a good sell job.
That made him walk away being like, this is the spot.
Well, first of all, he basically said, like, I'm going to put myself the furthest away from the Super Bowl as possible,
right,
and start from scratch. I don't know who his advisors are, but whoever looked at that and said, you want to get on that Carolina boat because it's taking off. And I see Super Bowl in year one of a rookie quarterback and an unproven offensive line and an unproven head coach. I see Super Bowl. Like, yeah, Thielen wasn't really Thielen. Like, not to pump up certain teams, but if you feeling that way, maybe you go to the Eagles, or you go to the Niners, or the Cowboys, or the Browns, somewhere where you can go to the Dolphins and be a third receiver, because you're a veteran presence. You can work in the seam, especially if you're playing off those two speedy guys. Tell me you're going somewhere where you actually can contend, not to a team that's starting out fresh with a brand new rookie quarterback, a coach who's not proven, and that's where you want to go to compete for a Super Bowl.
Listen, he clearly
that only works in Madden. That only works in Madden when you get to, like, make all the trades you want and then pump up your team. That only happens in Madden.
Well, listen, that used to happen in Madden. This new version of Madden won't give me any of my damn trades. So,
man, they make you work for it now, right?
The Washington Commanders, again, no surprise here. Ron Rivera was relieved of his duties as the Commanders head coach. What is interesting with the Commanders, though, Mo, is we have seen the formation of this new sort of brain trust, if you will. The Commanders ownership group has brought in former Minnesota Vikings general manager Rick Spielman, very respected in NFL circles, and he has brought in former Golden State Warriors general manager Bob Myers to kind of head up the search for a new director of football operations, as well as the search for a new head coach. Mo, I don't know what Bob Myers knows about the NFL. I do know what Bob Myers knows about building a championship roster.
Correct.
And I know what he knows about roster construction and dealing with personalities and dealing with megastars. So he has that going for him. Obviously, the NBA and the NFL are not the same, but he is a very intelligent man. And obviously, Spielman's resume speaks for itself. Mo, is this more of a flash in the pan headline grabbing move by Washington? Or do you think that this could actually bear some fruits and that they are on the right path to setting up this organization for the future?
So this new brain trust that they're putting together, it could work. I mean, these are proven people that are winners, know their prospective sports very well. You mentioned that how Bob Myers knows how to construct a winning formula, great with mega superstars. Spielman is proven as well. So I think it can work, but I think it's very new. But when you're the Commanders and you've had the run that they've had over the last decade, I think that you're willing to try anything. So when you have this big ownership that includes Magic Johnson and some others, I think they're thinking outside the box, and that's not a bad thing when you've had the history or the lack of success that this franchise has had. So I'm going to be interested to see if it can work, because what you have in one room is a bunch of alpha guys. You know that old saying, too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. I just don't know how well that's going to work, because these guys are all used to being the boss, and I don't know how they're going to be able to share responsibility. You're hiring a general manager to go find you a general manager. You're hiring a general manager. That's very interesting. I just don't know how well it sounds good in theory, but I want to see how it works in fruition.
And Mo, it could be one of those situations where you bring them in, you obviously give them a nice chunk of change. That's why they're there. And you say to them, listen, once the season begins, you don't really have a role with this organization. You are not auditioning to be here long term. I don't really need you once these hires are made. I want you to be an integral part of the process. I'm going to pay you handsomely to be a part of that process. But that's the stake in the game for you. This all goes away once, we've hired the GM or the head of football operations, whatever you want to call it, and then the head coach is brought aboard. Once the GM is brought aboard, he has the final say. You are simply his cabinet, if you will.
Right.
And if that's what they agreed to, I'm assuming that's what they agreed to, then, good for him. You get more smart voices in the room. Now, again, I don't know what Myers brings to the table in an NFL sense, but he is a smart guy. Obviously, Spielman has his own resume, and then it'll be interesting to see the domino that falls first. We're assuming it's going to be the head of football operations, and then we'll go from there. And then, obviously, if you're a Washington fan, there's many more questions that you have to answer about this team, starting with the quarterback. Is Sam Howell going to get a look for quarterback next year? Are they going to go elsewhere for quarterback? So, but like Gene from Wire to Wire says, you got to marry that coach to that quarterback.
You do.
So they're going to bring in a coach, and my guess is it's not going to be
Eric
Sam
Bieniemy?
Howell.
What about Eric Bieniemy?
We hear he's tied elsewhere. We hear that other teams want him. So we shall see.
Which doesn't surprise me. If Washington gets caught sleeping, that's on them.
Mm-hmm. News came out yesterday. The Indianapolis Colts are not firing any of their assistants. Shane Steichen is keeping everybody in-house moving into next season, which, Mo, it makes sense. You had a team that almost made I feel with the Colts, we've said this a lot the last couple of years, right? They were in a position to make the playoffs, and things just didn't go well the last couple of games. We saw that with Phillip Rivers. We saw that with who's the backup for the Rams right now?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. Isn't that
Wentz?
Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
We're sitting there like, you know what I was? I was getting Wentz tied up with Matt Ryan.
Got it. We saw that with Carson Wentz, where his last couple of games, where it looked like they had things locked up for a playoff spot, didn't go so well. And then even though things were supposed to have been off the rails when QB1 goes down, the ship was straightened out by Minshew, and they had a shot to be there, and Jacksonville did end up losing that game. So they had a shot to be there. The pass was dropped. Who knows if they win? But again, they were right there. So things just haven't gone well the last couple of games, the last few years for the Colts. But all things considered, they were in a great spot this season after losing what is supposed to be their franchise quarterback for the majority of the year, Mo. And for me, that's enough to say, listen, let's bring back the crew. Let's run it back and see what we can actually come up with when we have all of our pieces healthy.
Agreed.
So that makes sense to me. Mo, I have to say this, and maybe it's because he never talks. Maybe that's why it just seems weird. But it's uncomfortable when Bill Belichick talks for long stretches to me. Like, it's awkward. It seems like it shouldn't be happening. I don't know if I want it to happen. But Bill Belichick finally addressed the rumors, if you will, in mostly Bill Belichickian way yesterday. He started off by saying what's truthful. He is under contract. And this is something that we thought was weird the entire time because it was announced that he was basically secretly extended, while at the same time the narrative was his fate was sealed overseas. He wasn't coming back. There were already other destinations labeled for him to go to, and you and I are sitting here like, but didn't he just re-sign some sort of a deal? Like, what does all this mean? Like, what deal did he sign? Did he sign a deal not to be a coach? Like, what is happening? But Belichick said he is currently under contract. He didn't get more into it than that. And then things kind of took a 180 turn when he alluded to the fact, Mo, that, maybe he needs to give up some of the control that he has in his position, specifically referring to the GM duties. And that has been, I would argue, one of the biggest negatives of him as a head coach in New England is he is just not a great talent evaluator, specifically on the offensive side of the football.
Oh, yeah.
He has had hits on the defensive side of the football, but his hits on offense are few and far between. So now if he is putting into the air, maybe I just don't do the GM thing. He specifically said that whatever the process is next season, I'm just a part of the process, meaning that there are layers to this GM side of things, and he will take whatever role he needs to take in that process. Mo, this doesn't sound like someone who's about to become the head coach of the Chargers or who's about to become the head coach of the Washington Commanders. It sounds like someone who's about to lose some of his power in New England and remain the head coach there.
It also sounds like someone who doesn't want to leave, who wants to remain with the franchise that he's had so much success with. But I thought it was interesting. Think about this. He's been the king. Like, he's had total control in New England for over 20 years. And he's clearly one of those alpha types, A1 personalities who's had total control forever. And now he's saying, I'm okay if you bring in a guy who's going to be over me to make the decisions around me and tell me these are the guys we're drafting, Bill. You can give me some input, but in the end, Bill, this is who I'm going with, and he'll be fine with that. I don't believe that. I don't think anybody that knows Bill Belichick over the course of these 20 plus years would believe that, starting with Robert Kraft. Bill's saying the right things, but realistically, what GM could come in and really expect Bill Belichick to kind of like, well, if you say that's how it's going to be, is that Bill Belichick? That doesn't. The only way that works is they hire a GM, but it's really one of Belichick's guys, and Belichick's really bossing him around, and nothing's really changed. I just don't see that working. I think that at some point with this franchise, even with all he's done for the franchise, it's okay to move on. It's okay to say we've had an amazing run. You've done so much for this franchise, for the community, but it's time to get a fresh voice, a new face, if you will, of the franchise. They're going to go out, and I'm sure they're going to, whoever the GM is going to look for their next quarterback. They're look for who they hope to be their franchise quarterback. Maybe they need a coach. We do it again, marry the coach to the quarterback. We're in an offensive age in the NFL, and Bill Belichick is really more of the old school dinosaurs, who's more of a defensive-minded coach. It might just be time to move on. And here's the thing. I'm not saying he's done as a head coach. I'm saying he might be done as a head coach with New England. But Bill Belichick definitely will be a head coach somewhere in the National Football League next season.
There's these moments, and it applies to life in general, Mo, but there's these moments where opportunities just make sense. And I would argue that they've been calling for Bill. They called for Bill at the end of last season. They started the rumors the season before that when things weren't going that great. This just feels like a natural break in the cycle. This just feels like a moment where we've seen enough of Bill after Tom. We've seen enough of different quarterbacks, Cam Newton, Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, come through and try to take over that role as the future at that position for the New England Patriots. And we've seen enough of it just not working to where I think everyone feels comfortable at this point to say this is a wrap. We wish it ended a little bit better, but no dynasty ends really gracefully, and it could have ended a lot worse. But this is kind of where we are. There was a playoff run in here. There was a playoff appearance post Tom Brady.
That's true.
Many people didn't think that was going to happen. So we got the playoff appearance in there.
I believe that was the first year, right?
That was the first year.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a beat down by the Buffalo Bills. You know, Josh Allen kind of does that to teams in this division. And if you're Bill, maybe you look at it and say, I'd love to go get a fresh look somewhere, kind of rejuvenate myself a little bit as I wrap up my coaching career. And let's be honest, Mo, at this point, he's looking for wins. He's looking to move up the win scale. It would be great if he was able to win a Super Bowl somewhere else. And right now, he's kind of in the LeBron era, I want to say. You know, he's accomplished all he needs to accomplish as a head coach. And now he's just looking to add those final accolades to his coaching career resume so that when he's done, he has those extra handful of things to say he is the greatest, or he's right next to this guy who you think is the greatest, right? That's kind of where he is right now, I would say, in his coaching career.
That's a great analogy. He's at that stage like LeBron where you want to win another title, but if you don't, because of all you've done, you're basically at the cherry on top stage of your career. Like everything, all the other great stats and the numbers that he's going to accumulate playing this late into his career at this high a level, if he doesn't win another title, it will be a cherry on top because he's still playing phenomenal. I think Bill Belichick would love to win another Super Bowl to say, I can win a Super Bowl without Tom. But let's say he goes to a franchise and coaches a team and he makes them relevant. They're playoff contenders for 3 years in a row, and maybe they make it to a conference championship, but they don't win it, but he doesn't win another Super Bowl. I think that still that adds to his resume. He went somewhere else. He turned them around, made them a winner, made them competitive. That matters. I felt the same way about way back in the day. Bill Parcells had left the Giants, had all the success with the Giants. He didn't win a Super Bowl with the Cowboys, but the Cowboys were really bad when he got there, and he made them relevant again. He made them competitive again, and I think that does matter.
It was announced that the New York Jets are not going to make any changes. The owner of the Jets basically told Saleh the year was a wash. I'm bringing you back. We want to see what happens next season with Aaron Rodgers. And then Saleh, being the stand-up guy that he is, and we've heard this about him a lot during his time with the New York Jets, he looked at the situation and said to his staff, I'm going to bring you all back. This year was not the year that we wanted, and we're going to run it back, and hopefully we will be where we thought we were going to be this year, next year, once Aaron Rodgers is healthy. I think that was the right move, right, Mo?
Yeah, most definitely. Look, there so much of what this franchise was expecting to do was on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders. So I do think, and it wasn't that they had a bad year. I thought they represented themselves well with the talent that they had at the quarterback position. This team is still built to compete. They can actually add another piece on the outside. So I do think that Saleh saying, hey, guys, we're going to come back. This was a wash. Tough season, but we'll be better. I agree with him 100%. Let's get healthy and see what we look like next season.
In the chat, Kyle said, is there a chance that Bill has another year on his deal and that he wants to finish his coaching career in New England after next season? That's a possibility. I mean, maybe he went to management and said, listen, I'm done in a year or two. I'm not trying to coach for another 5 or 6 years. The end is in sight for me. I know when I want to exit the league in general. Let me exit it here. I don't want to go to another team for a year or two. Let me be a part of whatever the next step is for this franchise. Bring in whoever you want to bring in. I will help. I will support. Bring in a GM. Bring in, a young OC who you think can be a head coach in a year or two. And I'm not going to stand in the way of that process. And then while you're developing all of that, you got me leading the ship. That's not terrible. That's not a terrible sell, Mo.
Not at all. And look, if he and Kraft sit down and they have this talk and they agree to some sort of succession plan, like you said, we're going to bring in a guy. You're still going to be the man for this season. But if you can guide him, if you can mentor him and get him ready, and you're on board with the notion of that, and you can go out, that goodbye season, that farewell season. Yeah, I could see Kraft signing off on that. That's another way to part ways. That's very possible. My gut is he doesn't want to leave, and so I think he's open to anything right now because I think he wants to retire as a member of the New England Patriots.
The Raiders have begun to request interviews. Not surprised. We knew they were going to do their due diligence when it came to figuring out who was going to be their coach next season. We all think it should be Antonio Pierce, but the Raiders they want Harbaugh. They've said that that's the top priority on their list, so they're definitely going to keep the search open until Harbaugh decides what he's doing and where he's going to be next season. And then I would hope that if Harbaugh doesn't go to the Raiders, they keep Pierce. But once you open that door, who knows what the Raiders are going to do once they start talking to other people. So we shall see. Mo, all quiet in Tennessee for now. We've heard that Vrabel was going to be safe. It appears, at least for now, that that's going to be where we stand. The Jacksonville Jaguars have fired their entire defensive staff. I think that was the right move there. They have been lax on the defensive side of things for a couple of seasons now. And then, Mo, the last thing we have to get to when it comes to coaching, it wasn't actually a firing. It's a, well, what if situation. If the Cowboys lose this weekend, does Mike McCarthy remain their head coach in a season that has been probably Dak's best season statistically since his rookie year, with a running back who is not an RB1, with an emerging elite superstar in CeeDee Lamb? He took that next step this season to be
Very
an
good
elite
young
wide
tight
receiver. End. They have a great young tight end that replaced Dalton Schultz. They have one of the best defenses in the league. And I will say that outside of a couple situations early and then that Lions situation late, Mike McCarthy has done a pretty good job coaching this season. But if they go and they lose in the opening round of the playoffs to a team that on paper they should probably beat, where does that put us?
I really think Jerry Jones would consider firing him. I'm not going to say it's a lock, but you just pointed out all these things. I would add to, when you look at the way the seedings are in the playoffs, when you look at the fact that they have what they needed for the most part till they get to the conference championship, right? They have home field advantage, right? They needed that. Dallas has been great, almost dominant at home. If you lose a home game and the Packers are good enough, they're a good football team, but this Dallas team they're built to win now. This is their opportunity. I think if Mike McCarthy finds the way to do what he does sometimes, which is hurt himself with his decision making, I think Jerry Jones will say post game all the right things, and then he'll think about it, and he might make that midnight call. Mike, I've thought about it. I'm not going to let you sleep on it. I can't. I can't do it. I'm gonna give you the Arthur Smith. I can't.
And that's the thing, Mo. You look at the season as a whole, and you want to give Mike McCarthy credit, and he deserves credit. He deserves credit for a lot of what the Cowboys have done this season, specifically with the fact that they have been a much better team coming out of their bye. And that's kind of the mark of a good head coach. You're going to have what you have at the start of the season, and there's always that conversation of, well, the talent is just driving the team. Well, there were some bumps early in the season. The bye week comes, and they've been flying high since that point. That's
Correct.
Coaching. So you look at that and you say to yourself, this might be one of his best coaching jobs of his career. And then you look and say, well, he also had success with Aaron Rodgers. He also had success with Brett Favre. Now he's having success with Dak Prescott. This is the third different quarterback that they've had good seasons with him. Aaron's best seasons were with Mike McCarthy. Brett had a couple of good seasons with Mike McCarthy. Dak's best season outside of his rookie career is with Mike McCarthy. So you look at all those things and you're like, Mike maybe isn't that bad of a coach after all. But then he gets into one of those situations where he just stumbles and falls flat on his face. And anyone that's, 11 years old or older that plays Madden probably would have got that situation right and handled that situation better. And you look at it and you're like, come on, Mike, what are we doing here? And then you're back to the same conversation. And you're right, Mo. If they lose in the opening round of the playoffs, that alone is going to be an issue for Jerry. If they lose and he has another one of those Mike situations, Jerry might wake up at 1 a.m. or he might still be up and he just hasn't gone to sleep yet.
Oh, he'll be up.
And he might pull the trigger and be like, I can't do this anymore, because Jerry is a little bit impulsive. And Jerry, he thinks this is the year, Mo. And I know he thinks that every year, but I think he really thinks this is the year.
Right. I think he's saying I know I've said it before, guys, but this is the year. This is the one. And I think it would break his heart if they came up short this season. I'm sure he's disappointed every time they don't. But to your point, Mike McCarthy is a very good coach, but he's very bad in situational coaching. He just, for whatever reason, more times than not, he makes the bad call. He just does. Sometimes he just gets in his own way. But I think sometimes we come down too hard on him, because no coach is perfect, right? You could cite flaws in Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's a terrific coach, but it's not that he's gotten it right all the time. There are some historical coaches. I can go back to a guy like Marty Schottenheimer, who's a terrific football coach, but every time he got into the big game, he would just make a bad call. It just happens. So big picture, do I think the Cowboys will win? I guess we'll make our picks later on in the week. I think it's no surprise to anyone. They're the favorites, and they're expected to win. And my God, I know Jerry Jones is like, well, I just want to find out who we're playing next after
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He's already there. So I really think, look, Mike McCarthy, I think the Cowboys, it's such a big season for them. There's such a buildup. Dak is playing at such a high level. You pointed out how great CeeDee Lamb is playing. They have a talented defense. It's all right there in front of them, really, because the way the NFC is shaping up, there's a potential, I think, in this particular year. Could the Niners get knocked off before that? Absolutely. Absolutely. The wrong matchup, and you never know. So I know Jerry Jones is feeling very high on his Cowboys this season.
All right, Mo, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to do something that we have never really done here on the morning show. We are going to talk hockey. I've been wanting to talk hockey for months now, and I'll tell you what, these hockey guys are hard to get a wrangle on, all right? They are busy up there in the great north. But that all changes this morning. So hang on to your hats, because after the break, we're going to talk hockey. Don't go anywhere. It's Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network.
Hey guys, it's Pavel the Cat.
And Evan Rev Reynolds.
And we are two guys in Hockey Talk. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to talk all things hockey. What are we talking about, Evan?
We talk KHL, AHL, ETHL, every HL hockey league you can think about, prospects, juniors, even the Professional Women's Hockey League.
Yeah, we love it. And we have a website, Two Guys in Hockey Talk. So give us a follow. We got articles on all things related to hockey, and we're writing all throughout the season. So make sure you tune in. We're also on X or Twitter. You can find me at hockey_2, and
You can follow me at RevanEv. Or you can also go to twoguysandhockeytalk.com to follow everything.
we love hearing from you guys. So make sure you tune in, comment, like, give us a follow on our Facebook and YouTube page. We love hearing from you guys, and it's a blast talking all things hockey, right, Evan?
Hey, man, it is. So, as we say every show, in the meantime and in between time.
Keep your sticks on the ice. Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome back. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show, and we are joined now by Pavel the Cat from Two Hockey Guys. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Good morning to you, Mo, Chris, everyone viewing. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I feel very honored and lucky. I don't know if I should have my co-host, but I think he's sleeping. Even I'm sure he'd want to be here, but thank you. How are you two guys?
Doing well. Great to have you.
So one of the things that Mo and I always question and talk about and kind of joke about when we run your ad is the Women's Hockey League. Now, I have never seen women's hockey outside of high school. Just give us a quick rundown. What is that? Where do you find that? How do you watch that? Because I love hockey, and I've watched other women's sports, other women's contact sports where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be into this, and I'm very much into it. And I imagine that women's hockey would give me everything I'm looking for as far as a women's contact sport goes. So what does that look like, and where is that happening?
100%. So it's pretty cool because there's been a lot of turmoil and confusion with the women's league. There's been a variety of leagues over the last few years, kind of like there hasn't been really a concise one league system. And now it's started up as of January 1st, the new PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, which is sponsored a lot by the NHL. And a lot of the times the commissioner of the NHL said he's not going to support multiple leagues when there were. And he said, once you guys decide on one, we're going to start one, which they did. The original 6, they've started playing. You've got Montreal, you've got Boston, you've got Minnesota, you've got Toronto in there. And they're starting to play now on CBC up here in Canada. I think Sportsnet's got a few of the games. They're starting to broadcast it. I think Minnesota's last game a couple days ago had the most amount of fans in XL Energy Center of 13,000. It is getting on TV. They're still working on a few of the broadcasting rights specifically. But if you go to TSN, you go to Sportsnet, depending on what programming you have with what cable system, they're going to have women's hockey presented. The challenge is that, are you going to compete on a busy day like Saturday when football is, as you guys were chatting about earlier, during playoffs now starting up and hockey's still going? How do you compete with those ratings? When do you schedule that? The NBA is still going on. There's a lot happening. Like, how do you get those eyeballs? But it is starting up. It is a fast, exciting, hard-hitting game. I watch more so local hockey here for the ladies, some of the university teams. But these girls, a lot of them represent their countries, especially at the Olympics, and they're fun. I'm going to tell you, they're enjoyable. It just depends on your service provider for who's showing you on TV.
Were you as big of a fan as of the Cocoa Cup as I was? Because when I saw the Cocoa Cup unveiled a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago or whatever it was, I was all about that. I was like, I need a Cocoa Cup in my display case. Were you a fan of the Cocoa Cup?
I am. I think we got to get a little bit more creative and clever with some of these trophies. And I think sometimes you got to go and think outside the box and design something unique and cool that really stands out, because most people around the world know that the top 4 or 5 statues or championship statues that you can get in the majority of the sports, whether it's the NFL, MLB, the Stanley Cup, even in soccer, right? In the European League, what does it look like? So I do like it. I don't know, Mo, your thoughts? Have you seen it? Oh, you're muted, Mo. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm excited just the way you guys are talking about it. I want to see it. I've never seen it. I'm all in just on you guys.
Talk to me a little bit about, so this has never happened in the NHL before an 18-year-old makes the All-Star team. Blackhawks player Connor Bedard. He's the youngest to ever make an NHL All-Star team. For someone that doesn't watch hockey a lot and they just see the headline, oh, 18-year-old is an All-Star, that might be like, oh, good for him, right? Good for the 18-year-old. He's old enough to just graduate high school and he's an All-Star in the NHL. That's awesome. But talk to me more about what his career could project to be in the NHL. Is this a name that we're going to be hearing about for the next 10 plus years? Is this a situation where he's a good player and he had a good season, but he's not projected to be that guy? What does the future look like for Connor?
So he is what some people quote unquote would call generational talent. You know, he's got a lot of potential. There's a lot of upside. He has been thus far point per game. Now, unfortunately, in the game versus the Devils, he was injured, fractured jaw. So he's out for a little bit. And I don't believe he's going to be at the All-Star game coming up in Toronto here in a few weeks. You know, they're kind of navigating that. As you guys may know, a fractured jaw is pretty painful. It was a clean hit. I believe it was Brendan Smith, a defenseman, a big guy. So he is a little bit on the smaller side, but he's very smooth when he skates. So when you watch him, he can glide very fastly. Now, Evan and I watched him a lot when he played in the juniors. So like you guys have in the States, you know, college football, a lot of these young junior guys play in a lot of the provinces and a lot of the teams. So he played for the Regina St. Pat's out here in Saskatchewan, the province next to us. And he was just incredible. He was putting up 3-4 points a night, which is pretty incredible for his size and stature, especially since he's playing between like 17 to 19-year-olds, sometimes 16-year-olds. And he's really good. He will be a phenomenal. He could have a potentially really good career, provided that the current GM of the Chicago Blackhawks surrounds him with some key pieces, you know, some strong defensemen, some strong bodies, which they did at the beginning of the season. But of course, injuries, long season, it's tough, right? You guys all know it in NFL, you know, one injury and your team could be, you know, out. The challenge is that he still has a lot of upside. He can potentially be a point per game, could win a Stanley Cup with Chicago, who had that dynasty in the 2010s, 2013, 2015, you know, with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves. And he's got some good supporting cast right now that they're developing. But this kid could potentially win not only, I mean, unless he comes back from injury, the Calder, which is the rookie award of the year. There's a few, it's a big race this year. Potentially a Stanley Cup if the right pieces are fit. Definitely a few Hart, most valuable player in the NHL. The Art Ross, the most points in a season. So that's goals and assists. And potentially even a few more, right? Ted Lindsay, the best all-around player that the other players vote on. So it's a trophy from other players, who's the best in the league, which currently oftentimes Connor McDavid has won. But they vote every year. So this kid has a lot of potentials. He is a little smaller. He will fill up. You know, he'll get used to the men's game once he gets into it. You know, the first year, it's always tough. You know, you're getting you got shaky legs. You're trying to adjust to the game, but he fits right in. And and he's done some pretty impressive goals. If you guys watch his highlights, if people want to go check out on YouTube, they're pretty impressive. He's done. I know the Michigan goal has become the kind of standard now. That's when you lift the puck up with your stick and you just kind of twist it around and put it behind the net, on the top of the net behind the goalie, right? And it's been done a few times now. And
you make it sound so easy.
Oh, trust me, I could not do it. I'm far from the guy that could do it. But so yeah, keep an eye out for this kid because he could be good. I always hesitate about generational because he is very talented, but you always look at it in hindsight later on. What is his career at the end of the day? But he definitely has a way to impact the game, not only in Chicago, but for the rest of the league, right? And if he gets kids excited watching hockey, that's a win. It's a win-win. And of course, as everyone knows, this is a business. You get butts and seats, right? If you get more butts in seat, especially on a challenging season for Chicago, who's at the bottom of the standings, get on in. Sorry.
Speaking of it being a business, when you're going to run any sort of major sports association, there's going to be expansion, there's going to be growth, but you want to do it in a way that is good for business as you're adding more teams in. And it seems like the NHL has found a formula to do that. If you look at the Vegas Golden Knights coming in a handful of years ago, successful out of the box. You look at the Seattle Kraken coming in 3 seasons ago, not a great opening season, playoff season 2. They have a winning record right now. How is it that the NHL is able to bring in these expansion teams and right out of the gate, they're finding success? Because what better way to capture a market than to say, hey, here's a hockey team, and oh, by the way, they're pretty good, so you should probably go watch them because they're winning a bunch of games. That's great for business, as opposed to you get a team that comes out, they're brand new, you get all the hype for the first season because they're brand new, and then it takes them 6 years to, even have a winning season, much less playoffs or anything like that. But with these last 2 teams in the NHL, whatever they're doing, it seems to be working because they're finding success out of the gate.
100%. So it's kind of a twofold answer in that sense. One, like with any sport, the conditioning and the training and the players are way better, right? You see it more and more talent coming through, and sometimes it's hidden talent that you don't expect it. And the one joy of hockey is that because it's played so much around the world, whether it's Sweden, we have Swedish players, Finnish players, Russian players, even though there is still some geopolitical stuff behind the scenes. These players are coming over, and there's a lot more of a talent pool. So you've got that. The rules kind of changed, and you're going to hear kind of a divisive conversation between hockey fans about how Vegas kind of stole at the draft when they were able to pick out all the players, given what the parameters were, which I believe was 7-3-1. You get to pick 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie, or protect 1 goalie, or you just take I think it's like 8 or 9 any players that you want that you can hold off on without being able to protect them. And then the rest of your roster is pretty much up for grabs. And Vegas came in, George McPhee, who was originally with the Washington Capitals and actually helped build that team before leaving. And then they ended up winning in 2018. They had the opportunity to change these rules of what was possible, who you could pick up. And they found these diamonds in the rough, like a William Karlsson out in Vegas, a Jonathan Marchessault, who didn't really have a lot of success with the teams that they were currently at. And both, so Karlsson was in Columbus. Marchessault, who was the Conn Smythe winner last year in the playoffs, was out of Florida. And they didn't really have room on that previous team. And they were able to pick them, and they were able to amalgamate them. And I think it comes down to now that when you're an owner and you're putting in, and Vegas put in $650 million US for that team, I believe Seattle was close to $900 billion, if not $1 billion. That kind of money, you want a return on your investment quickly, right? You, as you indicated, Chris, don't want to wait 6-7 years before your team is somewhat good and getting butts in seats. So I think they navigated it in order to make the team competitive immediately. And there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think the draft and what they were able to pick up, and as well as the talent pool, kind of that helped, right? So, and you're seeing it in Seattle, which has been a big success for that city.
Before we get you out of here, taking a look at how the NHL season has unfolded thus far, if you had to kind of give me a top tier of NHL teams, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, that you think are kind of leading the pack as far as who is going to put themselves in a position to win the cup this season, who would you put in tier 1 of that conversation?
So we do this prediction every year at the beginning of the season, Evan and I, about who potentially, and I usually try to stick with it unless things crazy change. And right now my prediction was Dallas Stars winning the Stanley Cup versus the New Jersey Devils. Now, New Jersey has done okay. It's struggled, and that's kind of what I want to stick at. That being said, there's been some surprises, and there's been some really big disappointments for a lot of markets. You got 32 teams, only 16 spots in the playoffs. I would say Winnipeg has really surprised a lot of people given the turmoil in the offseason, and they've struggled in terms of getting good players there. A lot of people say they don't want to play in that cold city. I've been there. It's beautiful, but unfortunately, I get it. It's a smaller rink. Colorado is behind me, the side. Pretty solid team. They could come and repeat. Vegas could repeat as well, come back and win. Sorry, Vegas in terms of winning, Colorado 2 years ago. Those teams are kind of what you can expect. Vancouver's come out of nowhere. They've played very well. So it's possible that after 30 plus years, the cup may come back to Canada, although I really hard to believe. So keep an eye out for Dallas. They're really deep. Their goaltending they have injuries on their goaltender. And as you guys know, the closest comparison is that a goalie for an NHL team is like a quarterback, like a top starting quarterback for an NFL team. You lose that, and if you're not ready for the playoffs, so that's kind of what I see. There's a few teams that are interesting. Edmonton could potentially go far. I'm trying to think of Toronto, although again they have issues on the back end. Yeah, hard to pick because there's so many good teams that any team can beat any team at any night. But I'm sticking with my prediction: Dallas winning the Stanley Cup.
All right, Pavel, tell us, where can we see you? Where can we find the show? When are you guys on next?
Well, thank you. We're on every Wednesday night, Mountain Standard Time, 7 p.m. Here at StreamYard through Sports Empire. Like, you guys do an incredible show yourselves. And we talk all things hockey. We got guests coming up in the next little bit here, a few people from different markets coming on. And you can find us on our website at twoguysinhockeytalk.com.
All right, sir. We appreciate having you on this morning.
Phil.
We got to do this again soon.
Not
We
to
would
mention,
love to. And
we love
Go
your
ahead.
music.
Yes.
oh, thank you. Penny Billionaires. Yes. Yeah, they're pretty solid. So we appreciate it. A band from out in Arizona. They have some pretty good hard rock. But I appreciate what you guys do. You guys need to have more longer segments because I get all my football news from you. So I hope it's correct because otherwise all my friends will think I either know it or I don't know it.
All right, sir. Have a good one.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Mo, how awesome was that? Hockey Talk on the morning show.
First of all, when you listen to him and the enthusiasm and the knowledge that he's sharing with you, he's very JG like, but with hockey.
Yep.
So I appreciate someone like that who makes it easy for somebody who's a casual hockey fan like me to follow. Love the enthusiasm. The hockey guys are awesome. So it was just great having them on.
Mo, after 27 years, if you are listening to this show right now and you are in your early 30s, this has been going on since you were a very young child. After 27 years, Tiger Woods and Nike have ended their relationship. No longer will you see Tiger don the red polo with the Nike swoosh if he is playing for a victory on the golf course. That relationship has come to an end.
Wow.
Obviously, we talked earlier about Bill Belichick and all great things having to come to an end. Clearly, it was time. I don't got much more to say about it, Mo, aside from just wow, because I didn't think I'd ever see the point where Tiger wasn't somehow associated with Nike.
What a long and productive relationship they've had, though.
Right.
And I literally, he's one of the athletes that I associate with Nike, like you said. He's one of their standard bearers, and for them to come to an end, I'm like, wow, really? Because I'm sure he's not done playing golf, but would he tell Nike, like, you guys are being a little light with the cash? Or I have no idea why did he say why he decided to end the relationship? Or is he getting a more let me say a more lucrative deal somewhere else that we don't know about that has not been announced?
It looks like Nike's moving on from him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I would say this. I know as a casual golf fan, it's been far in between of recent years that Tiger has won majors here and there, but he's such a big name still in golf. And he's the one guy in golf, Chris, that I would make a boxing analogy. On any course, he has a puncher's chance. He's that guy. And I'm willing to bet he might not win 4 or 5 more majors, but he's got another 1 or 2 in him. I guarantee you he's going to come out of nowhere and get you another one here or there. It's surprising that Nike will walk away from him, but I guess all good things have to come to an end.
I will say this, Mo, for Nike's sake, I hope that Charlie Woods does not develop into a good to great golfer, because if he does, you're not getting him. So
you are not getting Charlie. You're right. You are not getting him.
So you close the door on Tiger for whatever reason. I disagree. I think there should have been some sort of a legacy deal.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
Correct.
I'm sure you were paying him a buttload of money before. Maybe you don't need to pay him a buttload of money anymore. but there had to have been a deal to be made there. It wasn't made for whatever reason. Maybe Tiger was a part of that. I don't know. But
you're so right, though.
Looking forward, if Charlie becomes something in golf, Nike's not getting him.
Charlie's going to be on Under Armour.
In the NBA, Mo, let's close out the show with this. We got two basketball things to get to. Number one, heartbreak. If you are a Grizzlies fan, heartbreak with Ja Morant tearing his labrum. He is going to be out for the season. He was playing terrific basketball in his return. That's all people were talking about when you said Ja Morant. Your next conversation was basketball, which is exactly what you hope for upon his return to the NBA. And not only was the next talking point basketball, it was how well he was playing basketball. And the conversation was, where will they end up? Can they get a 10 or a 9? Can they go on a bigger stretch and contend for maybe an actual seed, not in the play-in? And now that conversation is going to be a moot point. We saw what they were while Ja was serving his suspension. They are going to go back to that, unfortunately. Yeah. And that is going to be the season for the Grizzlies this year.
It was disappointing because he came back and he didn't miss a beat. And instantly you saw the impact that he had on his teammates. They were going to make a run. They were playing well. I would have argued that instead of the play-in, that they would have gotten one of the. You're still going to be in the play-in if you're in the 8th or 7th seed, but I think that's how well they were winning. Not to mention, if you look at the bottom of the West, they were coming back towards them. A loss like this impacts the conference because Ja Morant is good enough to be the best player in a series. And so it's disappointing for the fans of the Grizzlies. It's disappointing for fans of or all NBA fans because he came back and all we talked about is how great a player he is.
And then, Mo, last thing we have here, Draymond Green was apparently talked out of retirement by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. It seems like Green wanted to just hang it all up after his most recent suspension. What do you make of that, Mo?
I'm trying to picture Draymond saying, like, you're suspending me. This is it. This is too much. I want out. I want to be done. And Adam Silver had to talk him off that ledge. Like, we're in a different time. Really? It's not like you didn't earn the suspension, right? You earned the suspension. You knew that. I'm thinking of what David Stern would have done. And I believe truly that if they had the same conversation and Draymond said, I just want out, I'm going to retire, I think David Stern would have been like, let's get the paperwork rolling. Let's get you where you want to be, Draymond. Let me help you out. It's been real. If he wants to say that on his podcast that he was seriously thinking about retirement, that's fine. Because I can't challenge what's in a man's head or in his heart. I don't believe him, but if Adam Silver had to talk him off that ledge, that's fine. I just feel like that seems so dramatic and so over the top that I couldn't handle the fact that I'm suspended for my own actions that I want to retire. Look, I know the Warriors are struggling, but to the point where you don't want to come back and try to help your teammates out, that's kind of extreme. So, like I said, I heard what he said, and yet in the end, he is still playing, right?
I take it like this, Mo. I look at it and say, maybe in a moment, in a conversation with Silver, Draymond Green looked at it and said, I'm going to find myself here again. No matter what I do in my time away, this is who I am on the court. This is the kind of player I am. I don't want to be under a microscope every time something happens. Now, granted, I'm hoping he's saying I'm not going to go choke people out anymore. Right. I'm not going to go punch people in the face. But maybe he's looking at it and saying, every time I have a dust up with somebody, am I going to get suspended? Every time things get a little physical and maybe I was a little aggressive, but it wasn't that, but I was being aggressive. Am I going to get suspended? And maybe that's how he's looking at it. And he's saying, I can't play the last 2 or 3 years of my career within the back of my head. Every time something gets a little heated, now people are calling for me to be suspended again. Maybe that's how he was looking at it. Mo, he's 100% at fault for that. That's his fault. I'm not defending him. He put himself in that spot
Correct.
But maybe that's how he's looking at it and being like, I can't function if this is going to be how it's going to be.
And I understand that, but he earned this because of his resume, because of his action.
For sure.
His history says that every time there's a dust up, we're going to look at it and go, Draymond was involved. Let's replay it. Like,
that's right. Run it back.
Right. Run it back. Let's see what actually happened. So again, I can understand his frustration to a degree, but dude, you're getting paid $20+ million to do what you do.
So go do it.
Right. So go do it. And if it happens again, which I'm betting it will, you deal with the consequences.
That's right. Great show on a Tuesday. Again, so happy to have one of the hockey guys, Pavel, here with us. Mo, close us out, sir.
Thank you for everybody in the chat. Always appreciate the support. Thanks for everybody that's watching us right now live. We love it. Thanks for everybody who will watch us later on your way home from work. Appreciate you guys. Check out all the great content we have to offer at Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Make sure you're back here, same time, same place tomorrow morning as we start to get into breaking down the NFL playoffs. We're going to have Gene from Wire to Wire with us to talk playoff football. All of that and more happening right here in the morning. It's Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network, and we will see you in the morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey.